You ever notice how the quietest nights have a way of blowing up right in your face? Yeah, I didn't see it coming either. 1 minute, I'm trying to ignore the hollow thuds echoing from across the street, and the next, I'm getting screamed at by the HOA president like I'm the fire department, the snowplow, and the neighborhood's last chance all rolled into one. It started with a phone call at the worst possible hour. Miranda Holt, HOA queen, clipboard in one hand, neighborhood rules in the other, her voice already raw. Her son was trapped in their garage. The power had gone out. The automatic door frozen shut by a drift, so packed it looked like someone had built a dam across the driveway. She's crying. Dispatch is on speaker, and I can hear some poor 911 operator explaining that, sorry ma'am, they can't even get a truck down the block because the streets turned into a snowbank. And all I could think was, this never had to happen. Let me back up a sec. Couple days before all hell broke loose, Miranda had stormed over at sunrise, her boots crunching on ice. I zeroed in on my pride and joy. A home-built snow-melting rig, propane-fed, steel frame. A real beast I'd welded together myself. It wasn't pretty, but it kept the street clear when the city plows forgot we existed. But rules are rules, right? Or at least that's what Miranda kept telling me. Shut it down, effective immediately. Environmental hazard, she said. Something about runoff, salt in the groundwater, pollution this, contamination that. Never mind the road hadn't been plowed in. Days, never mind you could lose a car under those drifts. The only thing Miranda cared about was the HOA manual, and it said no snow melters allowed. By noon, there was a bright orange violation. Taped to my door. $750. Next morning, the road I'd fought to keep open was a funnel of ice, slick as glass, and the fine had doubled. $1,500 plus $500 for every day I didn't comply. Plastic wrap and violation seals went around my machine like it was radioactive, and Miranda snapped pictures to upload on the HOA app with comments locked, just so nobody could argue back. The worst part? I'd emailed weeks earlier, warning everyone the drifts were getting out of control. She didn't post those. Pretty soon, the neighborhood was divided into two camps. Folks too stubborn to care, and folks too scared to ask questions. I'd see them, standing out on their driveways, staring at the road like it might bite. One old couple tried shoveling a lane for their car, made it 10 feet before they slipped and nearly broke a hip. The father down the block nearly lost his groceries, and maybe his dignity, sliding down to the mailbox. Kids stopped riding bikes. Nobody laughed at all. Then the cold got mean. The kind that makes your nose hurt, that locks snow to pavement so hard it's like nature's superglue. I stood in my garage, staring at my rig, all wrapped up like seized evidence, feeling like I was the one under quarantine. The certified letter from the HOA arrived 2 days later, legalese out the ears, signatures, and threats about environmental contamination and property liens. They'd bolded that line. Over $5,000 in fines, and they'd start coming for my house. I called the number on the letter. Of course, Miranda picked up. I told her the drifts at the end of the street were chest high, that ambulances couldn't turn around, couldn't even dream of getting in. She just sighed. If there's an emergency, first responders will adapt. That's not your role, she said. HOA's got it under control. Right. The only thing they were controlling was my temper. Funny how private messages started showing up that night. Neighbors whispering about sick parents on oxygen, worried what might happen if the power went out. But out loud, nobody said a thing. Nobody wanted to get Miranda's attention. The real kicker? I found out by accident. Neighbor forwarded me an internal HOA budget update, something Miranda didn't mean for me to see. One line, buried halfway down the page. Winter services temporarily suspended. Not delayed, not reduced, just gone. The HOA had quietly canceled our plow contract weeks earlier to cover other expenses. No backup plan, no emergency clause, nothing. My snowmelter wasn't just an environmental risk. It was evidence that the board had failed to plan, failed to protect us. If I could clear the street without their help, people might start asking why they paid dues at all. I did what I could, sent more emails, attached time-stamped photos, wrote out exactly what was wrong. The only reply I got, noted. Not, we'll handle it. Not even we'll look into it. Just noted, like a legal disclaimer. The temperature dropped, the power flickered, and the wind started tossing snow sideways down the street. I went out with a flashlight and shovel just to see how bad it was. Shovel bounced off the ice. At the bottom of the street, the drift looked like a barricade. I called Miranda one last time. This is dangerous, I told her. You need to open emergency access or let me clear it. She was calm, cold. HOA cannot authorize unapproved equipment. Compliance avoids consequences. She hung up. And that brings us back to the pounding in the garage. Miranda's son, locked inside, air running thin. Dispatch telling her nobody could come help. Neighbors poking their heads out, filming on their phones, maybe hoping to catch the moment something changed. Miranda screaming my name. Her rules suddenly less important than her kid's next breath. I stared at my snow melter, seals intact, plastic wrap still tight. But sometimes rules aren't protection, they're a prison. I ripped the wrap off, fired up the rig, and dragged it out into the storm. Heat roared, steam exploded, and the snow started to give. Neighbors grabbed shovels, widening the path. Miranda stumbled through the snow, shouting at me to stop, that I was breaking the law. I didn't care. We cut a steaming black lane down the middle of the street, ice cracking, snow collapsing, the barricade finally breaking apart. We forced open Miranda's garage. The smell of exhaust and cold metal hit first. Her son was on the floor, lips pale, barely breathing. We dragged him out. Someone wrapped him in a blanket. And, finally, red and blue lights started crawling down the road we'd just melted. Paramedics rushed in. One looked at the still-running rig, shook his head, and told me, if this road stayed blocked another 5 minutes, he'd be in cardiac arrest. Cameras caught everything. The drift, the open road, the seals lying in the snow. County officials arrived, asked the one question nobody wanted to answer. Who ordered emergency access blocked? Silence. Nobody wanted to be the villain now. The officer looked at my rig, at the trail of heat cutting through the storm, at Miranda standing stunned in her pajamas. HOA enforcement is suspended effective immediately, he said. Any fines, any threats, void. An investigation was opening up. My equipment, permitted for emergency use. All those orange violation papers, worth less than the snow they were buried in. Miranda didn't have much to say anymore. She just stood there, shoulders sagging, staring at the place where her son had been loaded into the ambulance. A neighbor stepped up and quietly said, if that road hadn't opened, we'd be standing here for a very different reason. No one cheered. No one gloated. Relief just rolled in, heavy and quiet. I shut off the machine. The silence was almost holy. County handed me a copy of the new order. HOA had lost its teeth, at least for tonight. Responsibility for our road on their heads now. And as folks drifted back to their homes, someone handed Miranda a blanket. The storm was still out there, but inside, you could finally breathe. You know, I stood on that cleared road with my machine cooling beside me and realized this was never about beating Miranda or even about breaking the rules. It was about keeping a path open. For help, for sanity, for some kind of order that actually protects people, not just the rulebook. If I'd gone off half-cocked, acted out of pure anger, maybe I'd be in cuffs right now. But because I kept records, sent emails, warned people, I had a leg to stand on when it counted. It wasn't rage that saved us, it was documentation. So if you're ever caught in something like this, do yourself a favor, keep receipts. Screenshot the nonsense, save the notices, watch what gets filed, and what conveniently disappears. If things drift beyond neighborly squabbles, don't be afraid to get outside help. That's not weakness, it's how you keep things together. Rules matter, but so does common sense. Power's only dangerous when nobody's watching. And maybe that's what I'll remember most. The night rules almost killed the one person they were meant to save. The street, steaming in the cold, not fighting us anymore. I wonder, if you'd been in my shoes, would you have done the same? Or do you think I went too far? I'd love to hear what you think about right and wrong, about justice, about what you'd do if it was your neighborhood on the line. Drop a comment, share your own story, because out here, sometimes all you can do is clear a path and hope the world's watching.